Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ben Stapley, and it's great to have you with us for a conversation about reopening churches. The best thing about this conversation is it's with church leaders, people who are involved in the decision-making process, people with skin in their game. The second best thing about this conversation is it's with an all-star lineup of people. We got people from the teaching team, assimilation, communication, creativity, discipleship, multisite. We have everybody at this table talking about how to reopen well. So that's the context of our conversation. As people jump in, they're going to introduce who they are, tell us what's the position and the church they're at. But why don't we go through the three questions really quickly? It's a couple things. Hey, what would we do differently as church leaders if we could go back 6 weeks ago? How would we do this COVID season differently? So the past. The present, what would we do differently for online as we look to open our churches again? How are we doing online differently? And then the last thing, how are we going to reopen? What's our strategy or what's some of our philosophy in relationship to that? I want to jump in right away and ask these questions to this all-star lineup. Why don't we start with you, Brian? Why don't you tell us a mulligan? What would you have done differently at Grace Church if you guys could?
So for us, hi, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm the executive pastor at Grace Church. We're 3 locations just south of Boston. If we could do it all over again, I wish we would have fleshed out our kind of digital follow-up process a little bit faster. Easter forced us to get it done, but I wish we would have had it done 3 or 4 weeks before that. I feel like we probably had a lot of people slip through the cracks, but first-time guest follow-up, salvations, meet and greet, stuff like that. Now we have a full process for it, but I wish we would have had that figured out a little sooner.
Super helpful. Daryl, what about you guys? What would Brentwood have done differently?
Yeah, so I'm Daryl Girardier, and I run digital strategy for Brentwood Baptist. I think 2 things I think of immediately. One, now granted, we did not know the pandemic, the length of how long it was going to be, but I think we did a lot of duct tape on the front end to kind of get us through, not realizing it was going to be longer. So I think I would have built some systems in that would have probably been a little more permanent or semi-permanent that probably would have lasted us a little bit better than they currently have. So we're having to go back and redo some of the stuff we did in the first initial 2 weeks. The second thing is this: I think I would have worked more with my leadership to break up some mental models of some of the scorecards we currently use that we were in the process of breaking up, and rethink that how people understand what a win looks like in a digital world versus a physical world. And how we go about accomplishing that. I think we're still coming out of that where we're counting like viewers as attendance, and like those aren't the same thing. And we're trying to rethink those mental models with our leadership. So I think I would have worked on that a little harder on the front end.
Super helpful. Dave, what are you guys learning? What would you have done differently if you could rewind the clock?
Hi, my name is Dave Ferguson. I'm lead pastor at Community Christian Church in Chicago. We have 11 locations. I think if I got a mulligan on this, there's several things, but one thing that jumps out at me, I was kind of looking at it. I think in most of our situations, you got about a third of your staff who are doing a lot more than they used to do. You got another third that are doing about the same. You got another third who now what do I do? Who have a lot less to do. And we did reallocate and move some staff around into some new roles. One of the things we did that really reaped a lot of benefits was actually just literally getting people on the phone, calling our entire database. How you doing? How can we help? How can we get you into a small group? And how can we pray for you? I was stunned how helpful that was. But if I had to do over again, I would have done more reallocation of staff and kind of said, hey, we need you here now because, you're not leading worship and there's no venue, for example.
Yeah, when did you guys crack that nut? How many weeks was into that process for you guys to turn that switch?
Well, we started doing that like in week 2, but I think there's a lot more I would have done in retrospect.
Yeah. That's good. Greg, I know that Eastside does nothing wrong, and so this is probably a hard question for you to answer. But if there's something Eastside could have done differently, what would it have been?
It would have been this. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Curtis, and I'm the Central Director of Assimilation and Guest Services at Eastside Christian in Anaheim. We're a 5-campus church, actually 6, because we have an online campus now, right? And I think everybody does. That's a new paradigm to get used to, and I think that relates to what I would have liked to have done differently. I wish we had our Next Steps program online prior and sooner. we delayed it probably 6 weeks into it because we've been under quarantine for 8 weeks. And because we had to form it and have some lag time to do that. And our philosophy has been that our online presence was a front porch to our physical presence. And so we never had any of that stuff in. We would have had that in place. I think we would have been able to make a ton more connections with people, because that's the one program we drive all our guests to. We would have had a lot more connections with people when that massive online explosion of attendance at all of our churches took place. So that's the thing I wish we would have had done differently.
Greg, I'll rabbit trail here for a second with you. I know a lot of churches they had those physical connection cards. They're trying to figure out how to do that digitally. That's your avenue. Any secret sauce that you found out for yourself there?
Well, it's just, for us, that meant converting things to links or to text, so that all of our moderators are equipped with links to the one place you want to send guests. They register there, we capture their information, and then we have mail merges that will drive them to our one program, which is now Next Steps Online. It was Next Steps period before that. And the same with texting. So it was yes, I said yes was what you texted to a number for us if you were making a decision to follow Jesus for the first time. And then you were in a campaign where you would hear from me twice a week by text until you landed in Next Steps. So I don't know if that answers your question as asked, but those are the type of things that we've been doing.
That's great. Life.Church Greg, innovative Greg, launching this weekend, Mother's Day. What would you have guys done differently?
Yeah, great question. And I love hearing the thoughts. I mean, some of this stuff, we're still experiencing some of those similar pain points. I think there's always just continual improvement. I pulsed our church online team that heads up just all the ministry side of that, just continual improvement in our follow-up process, right? Where, especially in this world where relationships are even more critical, like how is digital crossing the barrier and letting just honestly let the technology disappear, but also let it facilitate engaging relationships. And so there's always room to just continually improve that, make that simpler and easier. And our team's just trying to do more of that. We also recognize we're in good rhythms around our content and getting stuff out across all the platforms, and very weekend driven as well. I think just even in a season of this, knowing the emotional state of our people, you've seen a lot of internet streams bringing a lot more joy and laughter and fun and hope, even in the midst of the storm. And so just looking for those spontaneous ways that we could just bring some more laughter and hope, even in the middle of this, in addition to our other content as well. So that's what our team, just purely from a content strategy, is thinking about, dreaming about. And then prior to COVID, it was amazing to see how God really was shaping us to do this more, and even what he was speaking to the hearts of our leaders, specifically around Life.Church is known for innovation, but honestly, there was a level of innovation happening that was creating more noise that wasn't keeping us effective in the mission that we were called to specifically. And so even Craig at All Staff was telling us, put down your sword, right? There are ideas that are worth like ideating on at the right times if we know that they're really going to yield the results we want. But honestly, let's look at tier 1. What is mission critical, right? Tier 2, what's important and strategic? Beyond that, if it's even important and meaningful, or meaningful but not important, let's really do an audit of all of our things, block schedule our time, and say, let's do the right things right.
I would say, done differently, I would say, and probably most of you have echoed so much of it, I think slowing down and being strategic, which is what most of us are probably all doing now. I think that idea with not just content, also just with even people resource of, we kind of hit the ground running really hard. And we had just come out of a season of like Vision Weekend Conference. So we were just slowing down when all of a sudden this kind of picked up. So I think what we're feeling now, I don't know what week we're in, 8 or 9, of really, having to really be strategic with content and stop and kind of do all the things we've done before as churches and be strategic and think through what are we trying to do, what are we trying to measure. And like when you said before, this wasn't, none of us knew it would be this long. So it's a new season for us. Through that, we've been able to do amazing things. I think we're able to kind of stand up some stuff really quickly. We have been in probably a year and a half of a probably pretty intense digital innovation period, but just trying to stand up some new. We had moved over to Rock, which I don't know how many of you guys are on, management system, which honestly in this season's been amazing for us. If we wouldn't have had it, it's made our life so much easier. that, you know, we're able to route that to dial pad, and people have been able to, from day one, make calls on their phone. I mean, everything is at their, you know, right in their home. But then also even with even some of the team we had hired in the last year and a half to build out our digital platforms, which are still in the midst. We actually rolled out a website that wasn't even, we weren't ready to roll it out, but we reskinned it in a new way and rolled it out. But so that kind of really played in our favor of having those people on the team already. But I think even, you know, strategy with content, we went for the, let's just flood content. And I think realizing a week or two in, like, hey, great content at, you know, once or twice a week is way better than content every morning, every night, every afternoon. We were going over, I mean, we had literally some nights we had 3 or 4 things going live and people jumping off to watch other things. So, you know, just kind of spiraling. And then same thing, Dave, like you said, we've kind of reorged our whole staff into what we've called sprint teams. We have about 6 or 7 sprint teams that they have a sprint leader. And that's, for this season, really intents a purpose, that's their boss. They're kind of, we literally went through a staff of over 400, managed out hours of, this is how many hours you're on these X teams. Here's your goals for them. So, you know, for us, our creative team, you know, obviously been a lot more fully focused on the weekends and putting out lots of content. Yeah, but I would say just being strategic and slowing down. I think slowing down physically, even for our own team, you know, a lot, which you guys are feeling it too. A lot of us have ran a lot of hours in the last few weeks. So just realizing this is not going to be something, you know, that's gone tomorrow. So kind of just slowing down. We said from the beginning, this is kind of the marathon look. And I told Ben I got to jump off early. So Ben, I'm just going to piggyback that into even our reopen. And this, I would say, is not official position, but we are in that place of, especially in South Florida, I'm with Ben, like we're left out of the rest of the states open and we're still not. But we're much more in a posture of, we're not racing, you know, we're much saying, hey, we've kind of lived out a reaction. I think most of us have. Carrie Newhoff had a great post yesterday talking about most of us have lived out of, you know, triage mode. You know, now's the time to actually start innovating. You know, whatever we thought we just did the last 4 weeks wasn't innovation, it was survival. So we're kind of even looking at we're possibly even looking at summer of, you know, what does it look like to maybe stay this way for summer and actually build in. We've had we rolled out a discipleship program all online with about, we've seen just over 7,000 people get into webinars that we've done. We've done targeted webinars every Monday night this month that, you know, 1 week is parenting, 1 week was self-leadership. And then during the week, we've been doing classes, everything from Old Testament to a freedom course. And we do like about an hour class on webinar and then jump into Zoom groups. So it's been amazing. That has been phenomenal to watch people in this season. And we're really trying to leverage that again, going in kind of this next probably 6 weeks, looking at it. Knowing that, you know, and I think, Greg, you'll see it this weekend, knowing, you know, there's going to be some people who are ready to come back. There's going to be other people who, you know, we realize we got to do this. So we know, I was trying to throw all my answers into one because I'm leaving early, but I think we know Church Online is going to look different moving forward. For us, it was kind of not an afterthought, but it was one-man team. Now it's a 30-man team and we're caring for all of it. So it will never go back to the way it's looked. We're already working on even staffing wise, what does this look like coming out of this season to make sure that the content we've been hitting, just the even strategic nature of just really making it about, you know, the things that we're all doing now. Greg, you guys done it well at Life.Church, even from showing people's living rooms and things like that. How do we continually do that on our Church Online to make people feel involved? Because we have people, I mean, we've already had a huge reach on our Church Online platform, but now we have people in classes from all over the world that, you know, I even had people text me like, can I join this parent webinar thing? I know I'm not from your church. And I was like, yeah, you can. I was like, so it's really been cool just to see the reach that we've been able to. So
that's great. For us, we realized we were getting too much content when we asked our talent, hey, what'd you think of the recording? And they said, I don't have time to watch this. Like our talent on camera was not watching. You know, the most vain people are going to be people who recorded it, right? You want to see how you did. And they weren't saying, I don't have time to watch this. And so that was a pulse for us that, hey, people don't have time in general for this. Aridus, what about you? What's a lesson learned for you guys?
Hey everybody, it's Aridus. I am at Grace Family Church, also in Florida. I don't share the Christ Fellowship South Florida, but we are Tampa, home of Tom Brady. If you've heard of him, had to say, rub that in a little bit. But creative pastor here. You know, similar to what everybody's been kind of talking about, I think in the beginning, a lot of FOMO. put it everywhere, put the content. Can we do it on TikTok? Put it on Instagram. Do we need to go to Red in China? Do we reboot MySpace? Like, how do we get it out there? And I think it really watered down a lot of the engagement. And then the analytics became a nightmare. And we're still counting from 6 weeks ago, trying to figure out what's what. So I think that then we started tightening up and say, okay, let's really focus the energy and point people to the places we want them. Then we can have some more control of the content and the community. So that was one. And internally, I wish we would have done and equipped our staff better right off the bat. Everybody the next day became content creators and curators. So the stuff that went rogue and started coming out, on behalf of our church staff. So I wish we would have had, here are tools, here are tricks. We sent everybody to your site, Ben, so they got to see some of your stuff. But there's a lot of stuff we wish we would, okay, guys, here's some branding guidelines. Here's some apps. Here's some, things that we can do, and everything from shooting video to posting a picture to going live on Facebook. That would have been, we have it now, right? But I wish on first week we could have equipped our staff. Okay, go, be the church.
Super helpful, super helpful. And I love what Life.Church has been doing in terms of those, how to record yourself at home. That's been super beneficial. Thanks for resourcing all of us with that. Let's jump to James. What about you guys up there in PA? What would you do differently?
Yeah, thanks. James Byers, LCBC Church in Pennsylvania, as I mentioned, and I lead our communications and technology teams. And so definitely would echo a lot of the same sentiments that you guys are sharing. I think probably for me, the biggest one that I look back on is I think out of the gate, we were pretty well positioned from a main gathering perspective, but we left some of the other ministries floundering a little bit in terms of how to navigate and pivot to do really well in digital online. And so I think they just struggled with what problem they were really solving, and they didn't know really how to define that. They didn't know how to define wins for that. And probably even to a certain degree, I think we're still wrestling through that a little bit. And so I think if I could go back, I'd try and figure out how to lead those teams better through that process. And I feel like some of my team was positioned well to be able to help them with that, but our energy was focused elsewhere, and maybe not even in the wrong places necessarily, but I just wish we could have navigated that better. And so I think there's an aspect of like helping our teams learn how to define the problems even better. And we ran after a lot of executions only to find out that wasn't really we weren't solving for the right thing. And so then that caused a lot of rework for us. So that's probably the biggest pain point that I felt. And then the other one was really just about moving more quickly to daily or weekly sprints. Somebody had mentioned that kind of repositioned their whole team that way, which was really great. And so that took us a few weeks to kind of like go, oh, right, we know better. We should be doing that. Why aren't we doing that? And it just took a little while to kind of shift back into that mode. And that's definitely helped.
It's helpful. Thanks, James. Gene, what about you? What have you guys learned up there? Rewind the clock. What would you do differently?
Gosh, it's so good to hear what everybody is sharing. And I so appreciate and have had many of the same learnings over the last few weeks. One of the things that we did that I wish I would have done sooner, and I'm so glad we did it now, is we adjusted everybody's job description. It took us about 2.5 weeks to do that, but I finally said, okay, everybody needs to throw out their old job description. And we had everybody do an exercise and write a new 1-sentence job description. And that was a really helpful tool. And then we redid our dashboard. We redefined what our wins were. I think that I would have done that sooner. I think we did about 2.5 to 3 weeks in. And I wish I would have, had more forward thinking to go, okay, day one, we need to do this. This is going to help align everybody on the same page. We were in the middle of a $9 million campaign when COVID hit, and we were days away from our commitment Sunday. That following Sunday was supposed to be our commitment Sunday. And I had so many pastor friends reach out to me saying, I'm so glad I'm not you. I was like, thank you. I appreciate your compassion. And we pivoted. We canceled the financial aspect of the campaign. And boy, was that a hard decision. Those of you that have led campaigns, you know that all the groundwork that we've probably all led campaigns, all the groundwork that goes into it. And it's like the cherry on top is when you get to that commitment Sunday, right? And so to pivot literally a week before and to cancel that and to lead our body through just saying, it is not right. It would be tone deaf for us to ask all of you to make a financial commitment to this vision. And the vision is not going to stop. We're going to hold the vision and hold the discipleship of this campaign, but we're going to pause the financial reality. And I just personally have learned a lot about the importance of leadership not being tone deaf, and making sure that we hear and we listen and we are aware of what our people are really going through. And I have had more people that are part of our church, and there's, many thousand people a part of our church, and people came out of the woodwork to just say, thank you. Thank you for being willing to do something so risky, like saying no to this thing that I, know you spent hours and days and months and weeks on. So that's been a big, big learning. And then I would just say the tone deaf part also has to do with listening to people and knowing what they need. My husband and I co-pastor the church, and he's a closet DJ. And he just started throwing these DJ parties on Thursday night and spinning tunes. And our church freaking loves it. And they come and they dance and they laugh and they comment. And it's literally this like lifting that has happened. We're all just so like, what is going on? Oh my gosh, this is so hard. And the joy and the laughter, it has been so much fun. And so I'm realizing our people really need that release. And so I would have said to my husband, co-pastor, hey, start DJing earlier. That is one thing I would have done earlier. More DJ parties. So those are some of my learnings.
That is super. I'm going to touch base with you offline. We had the exact same campaign issue for us. We had planned for 6 months. We went through a 6-week message series on it, and it was commitment weekend. And then we turned on a dime and canceled the weekend and postponed that as well. Yeah. But it took a lot of tact for us to say that, right? Where we were 50-50 for a while. Should we not? Mm-hmm. And
we were too.
We used some discernment and wisdom there and said this would not be the right time to do this. This would be a terrible time to do this. Yeah. Karen, Liquid Church, you guys do no wrong. But if you did do wrong.
You're so kind. It's great to be with you. I'm Karen. I'm the discipleship pastor at Liquid Church. We're 7 campuses. We're at the epicenter here. We're about 15 miles out of New York City. We've had over 8,000 people die from COVID, over 100,000 infected. And so we are in a place where it has just ramped up. The needs and care concerns of the people of our church have just ramped up and accelerated. I think I share what everybody else has said, including, when we were off there for a minute, I would have gotten Zoom stock for sure early on. But I think for us, moving, we had 3 goals initially when we started. We've been out for 8 weeks. Our first goal was to get online as quickly. We had an online presence, but Ben knows it wasn't really the focus of everything we did. So shifting staff, reallocating staff to support our online efforts, reallocating staff in general. Our 3 goals were to get all of our groups online, get support groups up and running. For people, we were able to get 10 anxiety support groups, pornography freedom groups we got going, addiction groups, parenting groups, marriage groups, getting all of those things because, as we know, everything's been escalating. The care concerns are all escalating. And then our third was to reach out to every single person in our group. First, our most vulnerable populations, those 70 and older, those with special needs. We have a large special needs ministry reaching out to those parents. And then those who are immune compromised. And then it has just escalated from there. So for us, I think we're doing a lot of what everyone else is saying right now. We're just now starting, instead of job descriptions, we're doing kind of organizational goals of what it looks like to be a digital church going forward and how your job as a platform person now moves to pastoral care, because that's really our biggest concern right now. If you go, it used to be 7 rings of where people are affected. It's getting tighter and tighter, and everybody has, including myself, family members who have died, good friends who are health is compromised, they need help, they're out of work. We started relief efforts. Those are escalating. We needed to redeploy even some of our portable church, our roadies, to actually help now with the distribution of those packages, the relief packages. So it's been a lot. We've been running really hard like everybody. And I think pacing our staff, I wish we could have done that a little bit better in the beginning, and helping all of us understand what perseverance, what Paul's talking about there when he's talking about running that race. I think we're all saying, what does that really look like? And how can we actually help continue, because we won't be back for quite a while. And so, what that's going to look like, and shifting to do more content. I think we need more content. I'm loving these ideas of, kind of a webinar and then a Zoom chat after that. People are asking for that. And we've had to balance, what does it look like to provide relief? You can be a little tone deaf when people are hurting the way that they are, and then have like a DJ party. But there's a part of the population that wants that, right? That needs that kind of a relief. So we've been trying to balance that. And that's still been a little tricky. And I'd say the biggest thing we're still trying to do is get that next step, that connection piece of what it looks like to connect those people who are joining us for the first time. So it's been a ride.
Yes, if you crack that nut for the connection card, let us know. That's what we all want to know. Quick question, just because you brought it up, in terms of additional layers of care and grief, marriages, economics, grief and loss, struggles with pornography. What's the biggest hot one that you've seen in terms of your people making those requests?
Anxiety. Without a doubt, it's been anxiety. I mean, I'm a counselor myself. And so you see anybody who had even low-grade anxiety, it's all elevated right now. This is a pressure cooker, right? So in this crucible of the pandemic, all those things are magnified right now. We had 10 anxiety groups that we started online, all filled, and this waiting list for more. We have grief share. We have all those other. Anxiety is the number one. Our pastor did a 2-part series on it, just because if you haven't had somebody who's sick, you're afraid that you will. And if your own family hasn't been infected, you're afraid that somebody will.
That's good. That's good. Phil, what about you from the creative side? And never a misstep from Phil, but if there was, what would have been?
Far from true, but hey, great to be with you guys. My name is Phil Bowdle, creative arts pastor at Westridge Church, which is in Northwest Atlanta. We did a few things right. Hopefully there's some, I would say what we immediately did is I think we did a good job mobilizing our creative team and our leadership team to really step up, get in the game. Everybody just said, hey, whatever it takes, whatever we need to do in this new season, we're all in. So I think, in that 30 days after, we saw tons more engagement. I think our stats and stuff were up 500 to 1,000%. All that's great. But I think maybe what we missed is a lot of people that were at the front lines became on the sidelines, not only on a staff, but also even our key, team leaders and volunteers that all of a sudden felt like, wow, we're not in the game as much. And I think what we're still doing some catch up to do is how do we help mobilize them to get more in the game and join with us so that it's not just all on the creative team or on the staff, because those people want to step up now more than ever before. So, it's changing the conversations I'm having as a creative arts pastor. I'm talking to the guest services director to say, hey, who are your top leaders? How do you mobilize your team? Because you're the best at making people feel welcome, loved, and engaged. We need every single person that was serving with you before on our live stream, on our chat, welcoming people, engaging people, because it comes different from people that are just volunteers and people on our team compared to staff. So how do we help engage and get those people off the sidelines now and engaged? But I think it just something for me personally, I wish I would have done more just caring for my own team, because we were asking more from every single one of them than ever before. And there's a lot of pressure with that. And our tendency as leaders is sometimes to just think all external and not much internal. So it took a couple moments for me to just slow down and just have a phone call to each of my staff team and just not ask anything from them, but just say, what can I do for you? How can I pray for you? How are you doing? And just requiring some days off for some people and just saying, hey, turn everything off today. You need a break, because I needed a break too. And so I just think I've seen a lot of churches do a great job of caring for and doing the phone calls and connecting with people, but it is real easy to overlook our own team and ourselves. So I think that would be a do-over moment, I think, for sure for us at Westridge.
That's helpful. I was there as well. It probably took me a couple of weeks before I had those heart-to-heart check-ins with all my direct reports, and just like an hour, just tell me how life is going for you. But I haven't had that time to do that yet, and I got a feeling whenever we reopen, we're gonna have that same pressure cooker, and we're gonna have to love on our teams extra during that season. Thanks for calling out. That's super helpful. Stephen, why don't you close us off? What about you? What's a lesson learned from you guys?
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Smith from Houston's First Baptist Church. We're multi-site, 5 campuses here, and it is incredible to hear this wisdom, even on this first question. Gene, Karen, like you guys, Ben, we were we had a fundraising dinner on a Thursday evening, got on a plane, went to this conference called Exponential, and then we were Monday of Exponential. As we were monitoring everything that was going on, I'm walking out of First Baptist Orlando going, okay, Pastor Greg, we now have an online campus. We don't know what it looks like, but by the time, I land back in Houston, this will all be worked out. And so as you guys have talked, and since I'm the last one, I've had a chance to alliterate. So pardon me if I do that. I think for us at Houston's First, we were, and I'd say personally and as a church, we were underprepared online, completely underprepared. Our online campus ministry, our online experience was convenience only, and we just kind of left it at that. So there wasn't intentional engagement. So you guys are far ahead of us, and we've seen some incredible growth over the last few weeks. So we're unprepared online. We undervalued the phone. I mean, I really don't understand the renaissance of the telephone in week 1 and 2. It was just my kids are going, well, I think I'll call this person and actually talk to them. That was huge. And so I think what it does is it leads into care systems. I think that we had undervalued not only online care systems, but what you're talking about just a second ago, the intentional heart-to-heart with our people, no agenda phone call. The no agenda phone call. That was huge. And then at the end of this sermon, we also, I think I'm guilty of this. Man, I underestimated my people in this regard. I would have never thought in a million years that we would have some of our Sunday school classes, some of our Life Bible study classes, want to be able to group up online like they've been doing. I would have never thought that our 70 and 80-year-old adult 3 departments would have gone, sign me up. I'm here on Zoom. Whatever it is, I can learn it. I never thought that would happen. And whether they're gathering online or whether they're doing discipleship online, I always in the back of my mind, I'm like, short of a pandemic, they're never going to do this. We had that. And I wish that I would have given my people more credit to learning something new and engaging like we've been doing the last couple of weeks. So that's my answer to that. So.
That's helpful. The no agenda phone call. I love that. I'm stealing that one. That's good. I'm stealing it. I'm hopefully going to apply it as well. Let me turn the corner here. Brian, take it away. The next conversation topic, online. How are you guys doing, Grace, online differently moving forward?
Yeah, so the things that, we're all learning, right? No one's an expert in it. And now that everything's different, we're testing and innovating every weekend. But 3 of the things that we're kind of going to go all in on, one is texting as the next step for everyone. We tried websites, we tried links, all that kind of stuff in the chat, but we realized that texting is just, people are loving the texting. And for us, we chose to do a long form text, the 10 digits. Because it's a local number. So it seems like you're actually texting a real person, not text something to 3535. And so what we've seen is we went one way of everything being automated text response. So it would just text back a link that they'd fill out a form. And then what we did was we actually moved to a manual system. And so all the first response is automated, but the first response asks a question like, if they texted that they just got saved, then the text is, wow, I'm so excited for you. Who am I talking with? Right. So that's the automated one. But then after that, it goes to a manual conversation that we have. And then that way we slowly get their email, their address, because we're saying, man, we want to send you some resources this week. Can I email you some resources? They say yes, and then we ask for an email. Or on Monday, we'll text them back and say, we have a stack of Bibles here, and we text them a picture of the stack of Bibles. Can we mail you a Bible? Right? If they say yes, then we ask for the address. And so we slowly get that information, but it starts a conversation. So we've seen huge success with that. So one is we're going all in on texting. Two is we're going all in on online outreach. And so for us, what that looks like is we're starting webinars. We're doing webinars as outreaches. And so we just did our first one yesterday, where we interviewed a doctor that goes to our church. He has the largest pediatric clinic in the South Shore of Boston. And so we did an hour-long webinar with him that we did Facebook ads to. And the webinar topic was how to keep your kids safe in a COVID environment. And so there was Q&A, there was questions. We had tons of people come on. Next week, our youth pastor is doing it, and he's going to do one on how to keep your teens safe online. Now that all the teens have, quadrupled their screen time, how do you keep your family safe? And so we're going all in on that. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're starting Facebook groups as outreach groups. And so we've started an entrepreneurs or a small business group for entrepreneurs south of Boston. And then we've started a intentional parenting Facebook group for parents south of Boston. And, it says sponsored by Grace Church. And then every day there's new content that goes out. And then we'll just use that as an outreach. So hopefully, tons of people from the community get involved in that. So those are the three things that we're kind of going all in on for online ministry now.
That's great. It seems like you're leveraging high value add content for your community in very tangible and practical ways. Love that. Thank you for those ideas. That's super helpful. Daryl, what about you guys? How are you doing online differently moving forward?
We were in the middle of redoing our entire church strategy around disciple making and what is a disciple? How do we equip for making disciples? So we're not stopping that. We're just going to convert that and figure out what's that look like in an online world. Our thought is our whole strategy was it was not location dependent. It was not dependent on the building. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that in an online world. So we're going to really press hard on going into disciple making. What's that look like? How do we have gospel conversations online? How do we encourage people to get in groups? And that's our model for how we're going to go about that process. The second thing we're going to focus on is we started doing Zoom groups for people who, what we call Discover Us, which is basically our kind of next steps class. And there was Discover You, which is basically you learn about yourself and your fit within the body of Christ. So that's gone great. We had huge returns on doing that. Like week one, the signups was through the roof. Then we're moving to what I call asynchronous learning, which is going to be teachable.com, is we're going to start hosting courses for people to take that they can take time shifted whenever they want to. Because we don't always assume as people kind of go back to work that they've got the same open door 24/7 schedule that we can just kind of ping them in terms of like always live content. So we want to move some of this stuff to time shifted content that they can use and adapt to whenever they like. So right now we're in the middle of launching 4 or 5 courses on Teachable, which so far seem to have worked pretty well for us.
It's helpful. Dave, as a communicator, how are things changing for you in particular as you're dovetailing your communication just strictly for an online audience? What does that look like for you?
Not so much there really. I'll just chime in one other thought though. I mean, we're going all in on small groups, our digital groups. In Illinois, it feels a little different than some of the other places. Our governor just rolled out on May 5th a 5-phase plan, which he says we're not going to open up anything over 50 until there's a vaccine, which the best of minds are saying that's not going to happen until January. So the one thing that we're absolutely certain will scale no matter what size we are, and no matter how we have to adapt is our digital groups. And so we're putting all our chips in there.
It's helpful. What about you, Greg? Eastside, anything different for you in relationship to online moving forward?
Well, when it comes to moving forward and our phased rollout, I'm going to cover both if that's okay, Ben, because I'm going to have to duck out a little early. So let me share this. What we'll keep moving forward that we never would have before is the next steps online. Gene Apple and I had kind of driven a stake in the sand several months ago, the end of last year, saying we will never do next steps online. We actually said that to each other. because we believe it's a highly engaged communal kind of thing and we're just never going to do it. And I guess God heard that conversation. And so we roll out Next Steps online. We had 131 people who have never taken Next Steps show up, and we had 23 first-time decisions to follow Jesus. We only had 2 in the services that weekend. So it's what we learned is this is here to stay, and it's going to serve us in multiple ways as we move forward. It's not a temporary thing during the quarantine. This is now going to be part of who we are, and I'm excited about all the possibilities of that. When it comes to rolling out, when phase 2, 3, 4 hits in this quarantine, this interview comes at a perfect time because Gene and the exec team just rolled this out to us yesterday. And I'll share it with you because it's real quick and it's real portable, and I think a lot of people will find some value in some of this stuff. So basically, we want to keep in mind that there's 3 kinds of people out there in our congregation in response to the gathering together physically. And that's those that can't wait and don't understand why we didn't do it, a week ago. There's the cautious and tentative, but that want to meet. Probably the majority are in that. But according to Glue, 11% of people won't even come back once we're physically gathering until there's a vaccine. And that's 1 out of 10. So keeping the different audiences in mind while we're planning and with our expectations, I think is going to be real key. There's 6 real quick values and principles that we're going to keep to inform our rollout. One is that Eastside has never been closed. And I think we all need to be saying that our church was never closed. The gospel is still being preached. The poor are still being helped. And we were not closed. And I think we need to realize that. The second thing is that our Eastside Weekend campus gatherings don't operate well under social distancing guidelines. So if there was permission to meet, but we would have to limit 500 people to our 2,400 seat auditorium or sit people 2 rows apart from each other and 6 seats apart, then we're not going to meet. We're not going to do that for a number of reasons. And that leads to the third principle, which is we're not going to rush reentry to campus life and hurt our reputation in the neighbor communities, in our neighbors and with our communities. We're going to honor the state's wishes on those things. But the other thing is, from a guest perspective, if we're going to limit, how many people can come in or where they sit, or have to police things, or not know what we're doing for a few weeks, we are just not going to risk making those bad impressions on the front end. The fourth principle was we recognized that the reentry dates for our Southern California campuses and our other campus, like in Park Rapids, Minnesota, they may be different. For instance, in LA County, we've got, I think, 12,000 cases. We have 2,000 cases in Orange County where we are. In the county where our Park Rapids campus is, there are no known cases, none. So that's going to affect things, and we need to manage that. The fifth is we'll manage all of our Eastsiders' frustrations, not by defending or explaining our position, but by casting vision. Vision is going to be the thing for how we're going to handle that. And the sixth and most important probably to most people is that any plans we make are going to be fluid. So we're all in phase 1, which means everything from next steps to small groups to worship gatherings, we're all in our homes. But phase 2 for us is going to be that we're going to have small groups meet, and we're going to encourage people to watch worship in their living rooms and invite their small groups or their family, their friends and neighbors to almost like watch parties and do that together while our church is not physically meeting. And then lastly, phase 3 will be preceded by 2 full weeks of services where the public is not invited, but only our volunteers are. And we're going to learn the new protocols and the new processes so that on the 3rd week, when we open and meet, everybody can come in and have a great experience in whatever the new normal is.
That's good. We just to tag on that in terms of that vaccine issue, we recently sent out an email to 20 members of our email database. 1,000 people with a survey. 1,000 people took that survey, and out of that 1,000 people, it was 10%. 10% people responded, I'm not going to come back until there's a vaccine. So there is a large percentage of people out there who are feeling that. Greg, you have the title of Innovative Pastor. Give us some innovation. What are you guys doing online differently?
So innovation is part of my job, but it's technically interactive pastor. So I oversee all the digital experience for Life.Church specifically, but partner with groups like Open Network as well. But let me preface this too with like, I'm not in the decision-making category as far as, being reopening campuses across different states, but I could share with you a lot of what's been kind of trickled down to us and the why behind the what around the decisions we're making currently. But let me start first with really how we're adapting the online model of ministry and some of the things we're just kind of keeping a pulse on. I think from the interactive side, we recognize there were blind spots where there could have been better just church online awareness across all of our platforms. Obviously, when you move from multiple locations to just one, you're seeing all the places where you need to on-ramp people better to understand, I can actually go online. Just realizing that online is the new front line, especially in this season, if not from now on. And then just echoing a lot of the things that obviously God has put his finger on for many of the churches here, just in the discipleship side, like how do we continue to expand our groups, raise up leaders to lead well in the categories they want to lead and on the platforms they want to lead in is a huge part of it. But one of the key things I think where our mind is shifting a little bit, and this isn't definitive, but we're really asking the questions, what does our on-demand content look like as far as being an on-ramp to those key decisions? We always believe church online is community around content. And I think what we're realizing is there's still people coming through archived content that can have a better ramp to community. And so while we see maybe 3x engagement on archived content, it's like, well, why can't we just quickly get them to a CTA that says join someone else online or bring awareness, let's say around an anxiety series, to then get into groups that are related to anxiety. So I think there's just some really low-hanging fruit in our archives to get people to where they can get help today and connect to other people. So those are the main things we're looking at online as well. And I could jump into the next question if you want, or I could wait till we kind of round robin again, whatever you want, Ben.
Yeah, that's helpful. Let's keep pushing just to finish off this conversation, then we'll get to the reopening. What about for you, Erdis? What are you guys doing differently online?
Yeah, a lot of stuff that you guys have already mentioned, so I don't want to be redundant. I will say we've messed around with the analytics and the actual engagement and the retention. We are definitely shortening our online content and really kind of speaking to the short attention spans and try to flow with breaks and how to give next steps if you only watch for 3 minutes, 5, 10. So our communicators, our teachers we're being very strategic with that. So that's been fun, challenging. Also translation. We opened up the diversity in languages in our congregation. We've been missing on why are we not providing this live or on demand for the world, right? So that's going to be new going forward and leveraging really our population and and then way more online. I'm going to speak to something Phil mentioned earlier, care internally for our teams. They're creative, same thing, right? Triple the amount of output, and we're trying to figure out how to care. And I got this idea from a company locally here, and they did a talent show online, a Zoom party talent show. So our team decided to care for our creatives. We sent pizza to everybody in the team that night. We had a talent show on Zoom. And it was incredible. It felt fun. It was care. It was a mix of, it was really, so figuring out multi-site, even when we get back physically, you still have multiple campuses and places and cities. It's hard to get together, but it kind of said, this is possible via Zoom too, to have the fun, to get the knock on the door with the dinner. And so it was a lot of fun. You couldn't use the talent you use on staff. You could not use that for the talent show. That was the catch. So we saw a lot of interesting, fun things. So anyway, just a few insights there.
That's nice. I've seen those home visits by other churches. I think that's a great way to leverage that content. James, for you, what are you guys doing differently online?
Yeah, definitely. Some similar things to what has been shared before. I think the biggest learning for us moving forward with church online is probably just a mindset shift or just a philosophy shift. And so the way that we've been describing it, I would kind of say it's a little bit analogous to how website design has evolved over the years. And, we started off with kind of designing for desktop experiences, and it kind of became like, well, I guess we have to think about mobile a little bit. And then it became mobile first was kind of the way forward. And now it's even moved into AI first. If you talk to Google and Apple, that's really the name of the game. But just kind of thinking that way, what we've really been challenged is like kind of coming into this, if we're honest, we were 15 location church and we kind of had this online thing. And we were kind of like making the design work for online, but really it was all about the desktop experience. And so what we're saying is coming out of this, man, how do we really pivot and kind of embrace that digital first or church online first mindset and approach to ministry, while obviously still figuring out how to deliver a great experience to our physical locations.
It's helpful. I like that comparison of moving from desktop friendly to mobile friendly. That's inverse. That's a helpful comparison there. Gene, what about you guys at Soul City? Any changes for you with the online?
Yeah, I so appreciate what others have said, and we've done a lot similar things. The shortening of content. We've been analyzing our own watch times and how people are staying on, and what the average length of time is that they want to watch a gathering. So those of us that are long-winded have really shortened our messages. One of the things that we've really realized that's been so cool is, like many of you have said, we've had people from all over the world now join us. And they're joining not just our Sunday gatherings, they're joining our small groups, and they're joining our classes, and they're joining our ongoing alpha. Like, it's just incredible to us. And so we've already, as a leadership team, said whenever, and I'm in the same category of Dave, our reopening, I'm in Chicago, our reopening does not look anytime soon. And so, we've already said, regardless of when we open, we are from here on out also a virtual church. We will always have virtual groups. We will always have virtual classes. We will always make sure that whatever we are offering in person, we are offering online as well. So, that's the beauty of sometimes walking into something that you would not have chosen yourself, right? You are forced to innovation and to creativity, and we're finding ways of reaching people that we just could not have reached before. I would have never chosen it this way, but trust God is in control of all of it. But we're seeing lots and lots of people come to Jesus, and it's wild how it's happening.
As a communicator, have you changed any of your content, duration, topic, focus, style, any of that?
Yeah, I have. I've radically changed it. I've changed the length. So I've shortened my messages. I used to be right around 30 minutes. I've shortened it down to about 23. That's what I'm shooting for. Sometimes I go a little bit longer. We're now using the teleprompter, which is a whole new thing to learn how to speak to versus a room. I got into this as a pastor, not just a preacher. And so I love people. And so to speak to a camera is a very different experience than just being a preacher. And so I've had to navigate and learn all new methods of communication. And it's been fun. I love learning, and I love challenging myself to figure out how to do something that I hadn't done before. So I think that's important, to still speak to people, not just to a camera. And so I've watched a few different communicators, and you can really tell the difference when they're speaking to their people versus when they're just preaching to a camera. One of the things that I learned from our children's pastor is each week she calls out kids' names. And at first I thought, Courtney, why are you doing that? And then I had all these parents call me and say, it was so great that Courtney called out my kid's name. They thought they were so special. And so I was like, I'm going to steal this from Courtney. And I started calling out people's names just randomly in my message. And it just meant the world to people because they felt seen. They still felt like they were sitting there in church. They, in a small kind of way, they felt pastored in a moment, not that intentional care and shepherding, but just that's the desire of the human heart, is to be seen. I'm convinced. And so if we can figure out how to do that virtually and still expand and stay as virtual churches long past this, it's a whole new methodology for how we're going to advance the kingdom of God. I'm convinced.
Yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful. Phil, what about you? What have you guys done differently online?
A lot. I mean, I think I would say I'd focus in on, there's so many things that you guys have covered that we're trying to do or need to be learning from. I think for us, I would say right now, there's a lot that you can't learn about your church and who you're reaching when you're a physical only church. There's a ton right now that if we can lean into it, we get a really awesome glimpse of who we're reaching, of how we're reaching them, of the content that they're engaging with. because you can measure a butt in a seat, but you can't measure attention. You can't measure engagement. And so for us, everything we're putting up, live stream, our services are, Q&A type of content, or worship Wednesdays, or conversations. We're measuring everything, and we're able to learn who we're reaching and when they're disconnecting and all that stuff. And that's impacting our strategy of how we're doing what we're doing in so many ways. So we can learn, where is it valuable to go high production versus where is it helpful to go low production and just go iPhone with a camera. I mean, we learned for our pastor, we implemented just a Monday morning, like our pastor will spend 10 or 15 minutes to prepare a 5 to 10 minute devotional. And he's doing that in all kinds of different locations. And that 20 minutes of investment is just scaling leadership and scaling influence in so many different ways to reach way more people than ever before. So, but it actually helps that it's low production, and it feels like they're actually connecting with him in a way that they're not going to experience in a live stream. So we're learning too, just by how we're measuring this stuff, how important that first 10 to 15 seconds is, and how important it is to get somebody to turn the sound on and engage and actually say, what's in this for me? Like to lean into that. We're learning where to go short and where to go long. Like many of you have said, our messages are moving more from that 35 to 40-minute window, more down to that 20 to 25 sweet spot. And we're seeing a lot of good fruit from that. And even taking, I know, Brent, you shared some stuff recently about just utilizing the countdown time. We're finding that's actually one of our most strategic times, because our most bought in audience is tuning in, and they've got it on their TV, they've got it on their phone, and they're engaging with us just as much during that 5 to 10 minutes before the service actually starts. And we're actually utilizing that as a way to engage people with what's going on, how they can connect, how they can engage with us, and using that as a way to create one-to-one conversations offline and direct messages or phone or text. So I'm actually going to be thankful in a lot of ways for this digital only time, just because we're getting such a unique glimpse of who we're reaching, how we're reaching them, for sure.
That's helpful. And to piggyback off what you're saying in terms of like leveraging those lead communicators, whoever they are, one of the things we learned was we did not do that a lot. Our communicators didn't have a strong social media presence. And I'm looking at you, Life.Church. I've been following because I'm interested in terms of viewership that, Craig gets in relationship to, the church gets. And it looks like it's, 3 times as much from his personal accounts, from the church accounts, at least on IG, when I've been tuning in there. And I know for our lead communicators, we're encouraging them to step up their personal brand. So there's that degree of, it's one thing for the church, but one thing for him to post it or her to post it on their own accounts. It gives a greater degree of authenticity, which people are looking for. So that's a gap for us that we've identified there. Stephen, what about you guys online? How does it look differently in Houston?
Yeah, I'll be quick. I think the principle is that we're moving from convenience to care, kind of like I talked about a second ago, just kind of throwing it up there and having it to really, let's do care and let's see how we can meet needs, as you said, as a pastor's heart. I think being able to have the reps that our communicators have had over the last 8 weeks has been invaluable. For them to stand up cold and go right into a 20-minute Devo talk has just been superb. So they're going to be different because of it, and what they will do will continue, after this is all over.
Okay, we're going to wrap up the conversation there. We initially planned to cover 3 topics. What would you have done differently during COVID? How are you doing online now? And how are you going to reopen? As you heard from the conversation, it was robust. We only covered the first 2 topics in that hour. But don't worry, we're going to cover that last one in a session down the road, so we'll come back to it. But I would love to hear from you and learn from you. What did we miss? What did we miss in terms of those 2 topics? What would you have done differently during the season of COVID if you can rewind the tape? And how are you doing online differently now as well? Jump into the comments. Let us know. I would love to hear from you and learn from you. Thanks very much for joining us. Have yourself an awesome day.